Summer session number 6. For our first mindful minute, let's tune into this present moment by taking a few calming breaths. There's no need to change the breath, just see where it is right now. Become aware of the sensations you're feeling in the body right now. Try and find a nice, stable, balanced posture, but also soft and malleable like a lump of clay. Letting out any tension you feel, maybe giving your fingers a little stretch here to warm them up for our practice. You can feel out the paper a little and become aware of the layout of the page. And think of your intentions for creating. I'll start a little timer for 10 minutes. And for this, my palette is going to follow the peacocky pattern here a little bit with some blues and greens. But I'm going to start with the basic lines and circles of this border pattern just to warm up my fingers. I'm using a nice thick marker to get these nice thick lines down. And I'm just doing the straight lines first, simply because I want to use different colors. You can do the whole design at once with one color if that's what you like. Now I'll get I think, green color for those circles. And kind of want to add a little purplish color in here. I know that's not quite a peacock color, but maybe we can be a little more fanciful with our peacock palette than what nature presents. And since I have a sort of flowery design in the center here, I'm going to go in and start with more flowery colors. Now that I've introduced this purple, I might mimic it just in the center of this design, since it's not simply peacocky, it's also got some floral elements. And since this is only a 10-minute practice, I'm using markers since they'll put down a lot of nice color. And that'll take a lot less time than going in and doing each little detail. But if you're following along without the base design, you can also just use a bold marker to draw a little circle and petal shapes coming out from that, getting bigger and bigger in layers. And then go back in and do some of those very simple circle and lines in little V shapes to make it look a little more petally. I'll use this sort of peachy pink to transition before I bring back in my purple. I'm sort of following the outline of this flower shape before I color it in, just so I can have the boldest part of the marker ink along that line. That way you can use the buildup of ink to reinforce the line rather than creating some sort of odd areas where it pools. I'm leaving a couple of little areas to alternate colors so that there's a little variation in the design. And again, I'm using these dot shapes to vary that back and forth and add to the design in a way that's a little bit quicker and more in line with the time we have. But of course, I may not get to everything, so this practice is often, to me, a way of sort of putting down a lot of color and deciding where I might want to go in and add more detail later, if that time becomes available. I want these eye sort of circle shapes to be in blue, since that's what a peacock feather looks like. A nice bright blue sort of eye shape with green around it and sort of a browny color in between. But I don't know if I'll use brown in this. Don't know if I have the right sort of goldy brown that I would want, and I've already introduced some fanciful purple, so I can be a little bit more interpretive with my peacocky palette. Love the way those dots look even now with nothing else around them, so I definitely want to use a nice bold color so that they still stick out when all the other colors join in. Since we're already getting towards the last couple minutes, I'm going to try and fill in the biggest outer shape here, just so that I'm ending off on a cohesive point. Even if I don't finish this piece, there'll still be enough sort of stuff down to make a nice looking picture, if an incomplete one. That's where not getting too sucked into details is really helpful in this practice. Just taking a little bit of a wider view every now and again. I'll do these inner circles as well, since it's a nice simple design. One of the things that can help with these sort of mandalas, since they're repeating a design over and over, is to make sure you're really paying attention on the first couple you do, so that you can get that sort of muscle memory into your hands. And then you can carry out the others, and at that point maybe think about the next color you want to use, or let your mind wander to other things. Now we're getting to the end of my little hourglass's cache of sand, so I'm just going to try and finish up a few of these flower petals so that I'm ending off on a natural stopping point. There we go. I'm happy with that. So for our second mindful minute, we'll just check back in and see where the breath has gotten to over that last 10-minute art practice. Notice if the posture has changed, if we've sort of crunched in towards our drawing and maybe built up some tension from that we can release and come back to something more balanced and stable, but also soft. We can feel out the paper again a little bit, or give a nice stretch or some wrist circles here to warm up the wrists before we start writing. And I'll set my little hourglass timer again before taking a look at this prompt. What is your favorite summer fun or action movie? What about books set in the summertime? And since I already have this purple, which I tend to associate with summer, I'm going to use it to pull out the words summer and summertime, just because I like doing stuff like that. I think they'll mimic my peacocky pattern with some blues and greens for the rest of this prompt. And that will give me some time to let my mind wander over the question. I have plenty of favorite action movies, but not all of them I associate with summer. Even though Die Hard takes place in a very hot and sunny LA, I do think of it as a Christmas movie. I am one of those people, and that has become a Christmas tradition in our house, so it's not a summer movie in my mind. But to pull on that theme a little bit and get my mind working in that direction, I can start thinking about what I associate with summer outside of movies, like going to the beach or going for hikes, nature, sun, warmth. And while I wander over that, I'll just fill in a couple dots here. Just letting myself think about beaches, nature, and then letting my mind wander over to movies that explore that or have those as themes. I won't try and pick a favorite right away. Right now, I'll just let myself brainstorm a little. And kind of obviously, thinking about beaches, I do really enjoy the Pirates of the Caribbean series. As someone who's always really enjoyed sea stories as a kid, really enjoyed sea monsters, reading about those myths and stuff, so those were very fun. There's some movies I can think of that are sort of maybe set in summer, but they also could be in the spring or fall. I'm not quite sure. I always loved The Secret of Nim as a child, but I think that's definitely in the springtime. Yeah, because the plow is coming, so that would be a springtime movie, I guess, more than a summer one. But there are definitely some childhood movies set in the summer. Like, there are a lot of Ghibli films I can think of, like My Neighbor Totoro is definitely a summer movie. Even if you told me it was set in the fall or the spring, it just feels like a summer movie. I suppose they are in school at some point, but it definitely has that feeling of summer to it. Another Ghibli film that I'm fairly certain does take place in the summertime is Whisper of the Heart, because I do remember her going to the school when it was closed and talking to a teacher. So there's a big chunk of that happens in the summer. And again, it has a very summery feel to it, with very bright, sunny, warm feeling days. As far as books go, I'm not quite sure I know any that are definitely set in the summer. The Beach is set on a beach, but I don't know if I'd count that among my favorite books. One of my longtime favorites has always been Cat's Cradle, and I'm just gonna jot that down because it does take place on a tropical island. So, if the beach would count, I suppose Cat's Cradle should. Speaking of islands, The Tempest, one of my favorite Shakespeare plays, is set on an island, which has another summery feel, though I don't know if it's quite summery. But now that we're talking Shakespeare, I'm missing a very obvious one of A Midsummer Night's Dream, which is clearly set in the summer. It's something I was recently rewatching a little scene from for an acting meditation or drama meditation to study an actor's performance. And Sam Rockwell does a very lovely performance of Thisbe that stops the show. And speaking of things I've sat with in meditations lately, I don't know if Le Petit Prince or The Little Prince is set in the summer exactly, but he does end up finding the narrator in the desert. So similarly to Cat's Cradle, it has that feel of summer since it's somewhere hot, and there's definitely a lot of sunny moments in there for such a heavy kids book. I think those are most of the ones I would put down for this. True Lies is another action movie that I really like, but I don't know if it's among my favorites. It was a really good one though. And I'm happy with where that turned out, so let's move on to our next mindful minute and just check back in, see where the breath is. See where the posture's gotten to while we were writing. Sometimes the writing hand can bring that shoulder forward so we can bring that back to a nice balanced place. We'll check in with any other bodily sensations. Become aware of the feeling of the paper underneath our hands. And give one last stretch here to let any tension out of the arms before we begin the crafting part. So I'll set my hourglass timer again. And I've chosen some tapes to pull out this theme of blues and greens a little more, and a purple flower to add another accent like that. I also grabbed this boat schematic since one of the movies that I wrote in the prompt was the Pirates of the Caribbean. So trying to pull out some of those themes just a little bit. We have this ticket looking thing, which I don't think is actually a movie ticket, but it looks enough like one for my purposes. So and these flowers, when put together, or I should say flower and leaf, kind of mimics the shape of a peacock feather, so I'll put that somewhere near my peacock mandala. I don't know if I'm going to use this phone sticker, or the other little leafy sticker I had originally picked out, since I found better stickers to go with things, like this little house for mimicking My Neighbor Totoro, which, if I did have to pick a favorite, I think it would have to be that one. It's one of those movies you can watch again and again, or at least I can. So I think I like that layout for some of the big pieces here. First, I want to box in my prompt writing so that it becomes part of the crafting part. It's a very simple function, but tape can be a good way to frame elements. By using this same colored tape down here, I can create a border around my prompt that's also going to be a cohesive part of the piece, since it has some of the same colors and the same design. Frivolous functions are one of my favorite things to find if I can make certain parts of these crafty things perform little functions like framing, or in past sessions I've made doors or pockets. These just add an extra little element to the crafting section. An element of frivolous fun that makes the journal just a little bit more than simply writing and art and some craftiness. But those pockets and doors can create little hidden worlds. And these frames kind of make windows that, to me, make things stand out a little bit more and just brings the whole piece towards something that feels more like a whole unit instead of having 3 different discrete parts kind of mashed together. Since green is a big theme with this peacocky design, I think I want to make a nice big strip of that. These washi tapes in different colors are ways you can kind of paint with tape on your design. They become painter's tapes in a whole new way. And so I don't cover up my writing. I think I'm just going to do a little corner on that side. These frames don't have to be perfect 4-sided objects. Since they don't have to actually hold up any glass or anything. The function they're performing is creating little borders, so they don't need to be perfect or exact in any ways. They can just be however they be. This blue isn't exactly the blue that I had in my peacocky design, but that's okay. It goes with some of the blues in one of my tapes, and it kind of fits the rest of the palette well enough. Now I want this house right up at the top. because I want it right by my neighbor Totoro. And I have this piece of luggage that I'll stick down with my boat. I think this flower thing needs to go somewhere over here with the peacock. It also kind of fits the Totoro theme too, since they're moving into a new house. Now I have this film strip that I was going to put somewhere with this ticket to make it more of a movie ticket, but I'm not sure where exactly I want to put it. And you know what? If I turn it around, it kind of looks like a little plume of smoke, so I can't help but do that. It's going to cover up some of my writing, but I like that too much to not do it. So there it is. Now I have a little film smoking chimney stack. I definitely get very amused by little things like this. And you know what? That's the whole point of this, to let myself be amused by little fun things for a while. I hope you are finding many little fun things to be amused by in your practice. I'll finish up with some of these flowers. This purple doesn't quite mimic the purple that I used in here. I wonder if I have something that's a little bit closer to that in my unused sticker section back here. And, you know, there are some things that are a little bit closer from what I see, but I kind of just like that little purple flower, so maybe I should just stick to my guns and use that one. Yeah, let's do that. Especially since I've run out of sand, so I should really wrap this up. If I can get the back off this quickly. There we go. I'll stick in my final little sunburst here. I think right up there. There, I'm happy with that. And now I do kind of want to finish filling in some of this peacocky design, but since it's now the end of the practice, and I'm just doing this for the sake of showing what it looks like as a final piece, I'll speed that up. Normally what I would do is come back to this throughout my workday for little breaks away from the computer to give my eyes some rest from the screen, to look at the page and just let my mind reset a little with some simple coloring. But since I'd like to show the final product in this video, we'll just use the power of editing to make that happen in a nice, speedy fashion. There we go. I'm happy with that. So I hope you enjoyed this practice. The music is from Lo-Fi Girl, and more details are in the description. And all this music is on the Lo-Fi's to Live By's playlist, so you can give those wonderful artists some more clicks by accessing their videos through there. Thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you next time.